What if I told you that your physiology is controlled by an outside force? Now, it may not control every little thought and am I going to go left? Am I going to go right? Am I going to sit down? Am I going to stand up? It may not control it exactly like that. What if it controlled the way your behavior played out over long periods of time? What if I told you that not only does it affect human behavior, but it affects everything on the face of the earth? Everything. Of course, you've seen the title in the video, so you already know where I'm headed with this. So before you think I'm crazy, I ask you, bear with me, because what you're about to witness and what you're about to see in this video is part one of a series. It's only been investigated a little bit by other people, but not in the depth you're going to see in these videos I'm about to put out. Some of the things you're going to see in these videos are literally going to make your jaw drop. Let's get started. What we got in front of us is just an application I wrote. I'm a developer for most of my career. That's what I did, software development, among other things. But this one happens to be written in C#. It doesn't really matter. Let's take a look at some data, shall we? See if I can figure out where to start here. Let's start back in 1902. How about that? 1902. Grab some popcorn, guys. Pause the video, because this is going to be a little while. You take a break when you get a little tired or bored of listening to my voice and come back and watch the rest. And then I'll put out some other videos because I'm not going to be able to cover it all in this video. So here we go. January 1st, 1902. We'll take it to, I don't know. Let's just go out to 1920. I'll have to see what the cycles are here. Okay. We'll do monthly interval. We'll do it on the close. Spline is fine. We'll do symbol data. And let's do the Dow Jones Transportation, because it is the oldest of all the indexes. Here we go. Let me grab the pencil. So what are we looking at here? Well, at the top, I got the Dow Jones Transportation. Let me change that color to something like purple. It'll show up better. So at the top here, we got purple, red, pink, whatever you call that. Dow Jones Transportation monthly close. Okay. Over here is 1902. Over here is 1920-ish. The bottom, we got sunspot count. Now, for those that are not familiar with solar cycles, hold on to your seat, because it's going to get interesting. That's right. Sunspots have been tracked all the way back to the 1700s. And of course, in contemporary times, we have satellites that keep track of sunspots, right? Both as well as ground-based telescopes and that track the sun every second of every day. So counting sunspots nowadays is, done like clockwork. And yes, the data is available if you put enough time and research into finding the data. You can go get the data yourself. So let's start on the far left-hand side here. We're talking about very long-term cycles here, guys. For those that don't know, solar cycles run approximately 11 years. So here's 1902. Okay. You can see that the total sunspots in this rectangle here are pretty low, right? They're fairly low. They're from 1 up to about 1,600. It doesn't really matter about this number so much, but so we're over here on the left. You can see right around the same time the Dow Jones Transportation, we'll just call it the DJT for now on, it's fairly low, approximately in the same area, right? Within this large rectangle. We can see it was high, but it came down similar to the low here in sunspots. So let's see what happens. Sunspot activity increases all the way to about whatever that is, 1906, 1907. So does the Dow Jones, right with it. We can see sunspots start to taper off down into 1908. Same thing with the Dow Jones Transportation. Yeah, guys, a lot of you, especially younger folks, guys and gals, I can remember when I was young. Okay, I won't go into how old I am. It doesn't really matter, but I'm older. Certainly not a young person. I can remember thinking, those people way back when were, what do they know about anything? The times have changed. They don't know anything. But trust me when I tell you, they knew a lot. It's not always about technology, guys and gals. There's a lot of things that happened, 120, 150 years ago that they actually did better than we do today. We take a lot of things for granted today, okay? Okay, let's continue. We can see sunspots began to, more or less continued to taper off all the way to about, 1913-ish. The Dow Jones worked in an inversion, right? Or some would say a diversion, but basically it's inverted, right, during this time. Though we can see there's a little bit of some activity here and here. Okay. But from about right here, they resync, and the Dow Jones Transportation continues all the way down. DJT continues all the way down until a little bit after 1914. So again, during this low area, we can see the Dow Jones, the transportation, resynchronized with the sunspots and came down. Okay, let's look from 1914. You can see here it's a little bit delayed, a little bit phased. Also, you gotta remember this chart's a little bit not exactly lined up with the other one. I kind of threw this together quick, so forgive me for it not being perfectly aligned. There's some issues going on here with the left column, and the numbers are kind of pushing this chart over a little bit. I'll work on it later. So you can see there's a low here that coincides with the very end of the solar minimum. We get a spike into the next solar cycle, and the DJT comes up with it. Okay, let's move on to from about, we'll take it from about 1911 so we can get a feel, maybe even 1910 so we can keep an eye on these cycles, and take it all the way out to, let's see, 1913, 1923. So let's take it to about 1925 so we can kind of get a feel for that cycle. Okay. So clearly there's a low here and there's a low over here, right? In between we have this going on. So that's the next solar cycle. Up and then down. I'm sure right about now a lot of you are starting to formulate questions in your mind. Don't worry, guys and gals. We're going to get to most of the questions you probably have going already in your mind and starting to formulate about how it affects price and the stock market and everything. It can't all be done in one video, so just be patient, okay? Yes, there's a lot of data that's been researched, and I'll definitely be sharing it with everybody. Okay, so let's take a look at this cycle. We can see over here the Dow Jones Transportation was pretty high. Okay. We get this peak, comes down here, and from about right here on up, we can see price inclines and increases with the solar cycle. Starts to taper off, and we get this massive drop off in the DJT. Solar cycle continues down, of course, all the way to about whatever that is, 1924, 1925-ish. And on the average, we can see the Dow Jones Transportation pretty much follows it until we get to about right here. Okay, so we can see that, we've got a fairly decent synchronization in that. Working down, works down. Okay, then we get a little bit of a divergence going on approximately right about here. But not much. Let's move on. Let's look at, since this is about 1925, we'll come back here to about like maybe 1920-ish, just so we can see how the arcs are flowing. And we'll take it out to about 1935, 36, 37. Let's take it to 38. What you're about to see here is going to shock a lot of people. Okay, net limiter, go away. Okay, so we can see here that, we're fairly low. Pricing for the DJT pretty much matches up with the sunspots. This solar cycle, was kind of weak. You know, it's not super strong, but it's still there. And we can see from about early 1923, 24, all the way. We're going to talk about, see this peak right here, guys and gals? We're going to talk about this. Hopefully in a video I can put out pretty quick, because I think it's very relevant to where we're at today. Okay, but we're going to talk about this peak right here because, believe it or not, this is where we're at right now. This peak in 1926 and other cycles is very common, and it has a lot to do with where we're exactly at right now in October, November of 2021. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Okay, let's stick with just talking more generalistic here and a kind of an overview of solar cycles and how it affects the Dow Jones Transportation. So we can see this solar cycle peaked way over here, and everybody knows where we're going with this. If for some of you, maybe younger people, don't know about the depression, the Great Depression that occurred in this time frame right here, and how it impacted the United States of America and the whole world. It is the greatest, one of the greatest depressions that ever occurred in modern times. Okay, so we can see that the solar cycle and the Dow Jones were really perfectly in alignment here. Yeah, they just both peaked at the same time. From that point on, all the way down to about 1934-ish, the solar energy and sunspots tapered off, and well, you guessed it. The stock market crash of 1929 is basically right here, guys, and everybody talks about that, and it is no doubt a significant event, but look what happened afterwards. Yeah, I live in Texas, and we here we had the Dust Bowl. So there was massive dust storms here at that time in the early 1930s, even going into the mid 1930s, 34, 35, 36. Massive dust bowl, dust storms here. Massive soil erosion. As a matter of fact, when I put out the video, I'll put up a couple pictures and just so you can see some of the pictures from that time. All right, so it's clear that the Dow Jones Transportation was in direct correlation to the solar cycle, coming into the solar minimum, right? This is the solar maximum. Two spots there, two peaks, but this is the solar maximum, and this is the solar minimum, right, for this particular cycle right here. Okay, so it should be pretty clear there that we had a direct correlation. Okay, so now we're looking at this next solar cycle. Remember, these are 11 to 12-year periods, somewhere right around there, okay? All right, let's look at the next one. So we're going to take that from about, 1929 looks good there. And we'll take it all the way out to, let's see, 33, 34, 44, 45, 46, 47. Let's do about 1948. Should give us a pretty good view of what's going on. Okay. So here's the low, the solar low here. You can see the Great Depression was still going on. The solar energy and sunspot counts increased as they always do, and we can see corresponding DJT goes with it. Okay, it starts coming down, this starts coming down. Now, I'm going to pause right here for a second just so you can get an understanding of what's going on right here. I want you to, if you can, as I talked about at the very beginning of this video, how solar energy and that comes to the Earth in what's called photons. These are little packets of energy, and I won't dive too deep into physics right now, but I have a very good I have an interest in not only mathematics but other disciplines, chemistry, physics, and so on and so forth. But the way energy comes from the sun, it comes in little packets called photons. Okay, and a single photon, when it strikes the Earth, it releases its energy. Okay, And there's also electromagnetic influence on the entire Earth. Okay, and the way it flows down to the Earth, even to the core of the Earth, and how our own physiology is impacted by it. And I think a lot of you would be amazed, and maybe one day I'll share some of the physiological changes that the human body goes through as we go through these cycles. Excuse me. But there's already been some in-depth study about how it impacts the change of the rhythm of the heart and, of course, the mind. And you can imagine if solar energy is impacting the rhythm of your heart and your mind, it's impacting your behavior. It's impacting your emotions, impacting your decision making. Everything that you do every day is influenced by the sun. And where we are at in this cycle and the strength of the cycle. If it's a weak cycle, which when we get to modern times, I should say not modern times, when we get to the current cycle, okay, we got to go through a few more cycles, but when we get to the most current cycle that we're in now, or the one that just ended, I think you're going to be amazed. Okay, but the strength of the cycle, if it's a really strong cycle, influences human physiology differently than if you have a weak cycle. Okay? All right, so let's get back to this. The reason I wanted to mention all that is because right here, Adolf Hitler came into power. Okay? For those that are German citizens, this isn't, I'm not criticizing Germany. Okay? We're just talking about history here. So nobody get upset in the comment section. Okay? We're just talking about history. Nobody get upset, right? Okay? But 1938, National Socialism began to take hold in Germany. And we all know the history of World War II and what happened with Adolf Hitler and the genocide, okay, that followed. So it's very interesting how we see this change in the DJT and the beginning of something shows up. Just it's amazing how it shows up here on the map. I mean, on this chart, it literally shows up right here. Okay, a prelude to, of course, World War I, right? Somewhere to about right there. So now we get just this sideways movement, like just absolute sideways movement as the solar cycle begins to wane, becomes into the solar minimum right in 1944. Of course, this is World War I right here, right? This is World War I. And when did it end? World War I? Well, as we start coming out of the solar minimum, guys, World War I ends. Yeah. I won't dive deep into the wars and all the different big events on the face of the earth because you could look up the history if you want. Maybe I'll cover it in another video. But yeah, significant events that have occurred across the world often are in alignment, which is nothing new. It's been studied before, but I'll just mention it here briefly, often in alignment with solar activity. This topic is so broad, it's very difficult. I could do 50 videos and not cover all of it. Okay, let's move on. In this case, this entire time from 1932 all the way to 1945-ish, you can see the Dow Jones Transportation was just suppressed. We have a little bit of correlation here, but after that, it's just suppressed the entire time. This is a weak cycle. Okay, everybody get that? Weak cycle, not a very strong cycle. All right. Let's move on to the next cycle. Okay, bear with me, guys. This is going to be a long video. It's going to take a while to upload this video, but just bear with me. I'm going to try to get all the way through to the cycle that we're in now, and then I'll stop the video right there. Okay? You can always pause this video, go to the bathroom, do whatever you got to do, take care of the kids, make dinner, whatever you got to do, and come back and watch the rest, okay? But in this video, we're going to come all the way up to the current time. So this video is going to be kind of long. Okay, let's move on to, we'll take it from like 1941. And let's move out to about, let's see, 54. We'll go out to about 57. Yeah, it's pretty good right there. So here we're in 1944 coming out of the World War I. I'm sorry, World War II. So I forgot to mention World War I, but that's okay. Solar activity increases really well. Look at this perfectly. I mean, just first 3 years, guys. In my next video, probably when I put out the next video, I'm going to talk about the first 3 years of solar cycles and how significant they are to the financial markets. Okay, from there, we can see, of course, it tapers off the entire time all the way to about 1954-ish. Okay, you can see here, on the average, it's pretty good. And then we get a divergence. And I'm gonna cut in another video. We'll talk about divergence, okay? Because this has happened at least. Well, you're gonna see divergences that they happen. It's very interesting. So we can see a direct divergence here. I mean, it's uncanny. Right here, just as we come off the solar peak, we get a divergence. Look at this divergence. Perfect. And for those that are into geometry, we're just talking about an angle. Perfect divergence, guys. I call it an inversion. It's inverted, right? This is inverted, is an inversion of that. You know, in finances, we call it divergence, but in geometry, we deal, and in calculus and things like that, in trigonometry, really we talk about inversion. Okay, or inverted shapes. Okay, so this is an inversion. I'm just talking geometry. I don't really get caught up in financial jargon too much because this is more I think geometrically that's how my mind works. Okay. So you can see the divergence here, right, or the inversion, and then they realign approximately right here, and they realign into the next cycle. But it's really important to understand that even though we had this divergence, look at this low right here that happened. Boink, right on time. So we'll see as we go further forward here, we're going to see other other inversions or diversions, and you're going to see that cycle where usually, not always, but usually where you have the absolute minimum of a solar cycle, you'll see a correction in the market, even though you might have this inversion or divergence going on. Okay, let's move forward. We'll start about like 1952, so we have a little context here, and we'll move on to, let's see, that's about 54, so 64, yeah, we'll keep it at 67. I think that'll be good. Okay. So here's the low. Amazing, right, guys? Solar low, financial market low. Here we go again, from about 54 to 57. First 3 years. What do you know? Not perfect here, but pretty close. First 3 years. Okay, we get a tapering off right here in this area, and the financial market DJT follows it. Okay? And what do we get from here to here? Well, it stays in sync about here. They stay together. They work together. So everything so far is really good here, right? Let's clear the screen because it gets a little messy here. We come up, we come down. We come up, we come down. We go up again. We get this little up. It's not quite the same. Let's take it to this one. Excuse me. Work all the way down to about here. On average, this works down here too. Okay, so looking really good. This cycle of the solar cycle and the Dow Jones Transportation from about 1954 all the way to about 63-ish look really good. They just pretty much are following each other. Okay? And there is a little bit of a divergence here, right in this area. An inversion. Okay? Up versus down. Okay? Again, if I were to find it here, it's something like that, right? There's this geometrical angle. Okay? Okay. Look at this. Almost a little bit later than the solar minimum. Okay? Sorry about that area right there. We get this correction in the market. Not a huge one, but there it is. Happens a lot. It happens a lot at the very, very end Right when we're getting into the very bottom of a solar minimum, or sometimes just coming out of it, you'll get a correction in the market. Happens a lot. It's almost like mankind cannot get away from the natural order of things as hard as he tries. He can't get away from it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We're going to go from about 1961, I'm going to go with, and we'll take it out to, let's see, 65, 75, take about 1978. Okay, obviously a low in the DJT, within proximity to the low for the solar. We work our way all the way up. This is a really good cycle, by the way. I've studied this one many times. And look at this, guys. What a beautiful thing. All the way. They're perfectly in sync. Look at that. 1962-ish, all the way to about 1969, 1970, somewhere in that area. The solar cycle and the Dow Jones Transportation follows the solar cycle spot on. You can even pick out some peaks here. Look at this. It's friggin' scary. Scary, guys. Look at this stuff. You know, sometimes, guys, I literally get a little nervous, shaking internally the more I look at this. It makes me feel small. On the grand scale of things, when I look at this kind of data and I realize these correlations are going on, not only on the scale in our solar system, but galactically, the universe, the natural order of things, it makes me feel small. Okay, for those that know me, yes, you know I believe in God and I'm a Christian. Okay, I'm not going to try to make this video out to be something religious or hit you over the head with the Bible, but I don't think for one moment this is all just a coincidence. It's too orderly. Okay, let's move on. So you can see this is perfectly in sync, yeah? We get this drop off in sunspots to this low right here. They're not perfectly in sync, but pretty close. This one's a little bit after 1971. This one's a little bit before. We get a little pause, and the market definitely comes up. Okay, but for the most part, from about right here to the solar minimum, probably about late 1976, we can see right there till about right there. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that low right there in the sunspots, and we get this low right here in the Dow Jones Transportation. Yeah, and it's really important to understand something here. This low right here is almost as low as the one that happens like a year later. Like they're the sunspot count wise, they're almost the same. Okay, that's really important to get that. So the market's like the stock market, the Dow Jones Transportation. It's almost as if it knew that there wasn't going to be much lower sunspot activity than what it already got right here. It's uncanny. It's downright uncanny. And it's like, oh, you know, the natural order things on the earth are just like, oh, we already know. The earth already knows that that's about as low as it's going to get, even though, you know, there's going to be some more rattling going on here. But basically, it's the lows already happened pretty much, and off to the races it goes. It's freaky. All right, let's move on to, I'll take it from about 1974 here, and we'll move on to, let's see, 76. We'll take it 86. Let's take it to like 1989 because it'll show something really important on this cycle. Okay, here we are at the solar minimum, starting a new solar cycle. We come up. In fact, I'll just take it all the way to this peak over here. And what does the Dow Jones Transportation do? Well, there you go, guys and gals. Right with it the entire way. And then through, through about 1982, maybe, they stay correlated. And then here we go, just like in the 1950s. Remember, just a couple cycles ago, what did we see? We saw an inverted geometrical shape, or for the financial people, a divergence. Okay, all the way down here to about whatever, 1987-ish. Okay, boom. we get this divergence all the way to here. Again, geometric, for those that are into geometry, it's just an angle. It's just a perfect angle. You can just draw yourself an angle there. You know, it almost looks like it's 90 degrees. Of course, that has a lot to do with some other things, but I'm just, you know, just shooting from the hip, we say in Texas. Just shooting from the hip. For those that know what that doesn't know what that means, I'm just throwing something out there. I'm just kind of doing it on the fly. I'm just kind of speculating on the fly, shooting from the hip, as we say in Texas. That means you didn't take dead aim. You didn't take your time. We just kind of went for it. Looks like a 90-degree angle, right? Boom. So there's that divergence again, just like we saw in 1950s. Inverted geometrical shape. But just like we saw in 1950s, guys, this exact same thing. What happens? We get this big stock market crash. For those who are around, your young people don't remember. They're really young ones, but a lot of us remember this, the stock market crash in 1987. And it's almost, again, just like in the 1950s, almost as if, you know, mankind was trying to go against nature, or the world just needed to correct. Why? We were just coming out of the cycle low, and it corrects. Same thing we saw in the 1950s. And by the way, guys, for those of us who were around 1987, which I was, this was considered one of the largest crashes in the history of the stock market. It was the second largest crash, only second to the Great Depression. I remember that. It was in the news. I mean, people were crying. I'm not lying. People were crying. There were people in the financial sector that were literally crying. They were really upset. I'm serious. There were people that had tears in their eyes. Fortunes, guys and gals, were lost. Huge fortunes were lost in the stock market crash of 1987. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at about I'll put 1984. And we'll take it to, let's see, 87, so 97. We'll add in about 3 years. Take it to 2000. Whoops, I'm out of the 19s. You know, guys and gals, just as a side note, as I've been going through this, I think about these 11-year periods that are going by, and in my mind, I'm playing out what was going on in the face of the earth. I can see steam locomotives and Ford Model Ts and horses and carriages at the beginning of this video, and now I'm thinking about, you know, cell phones coming in, right? And internet started taking off in this time we're looking at right now. Internet started becoming a big deal in the 1980s and 1990s. Cell phones were just starting to show up. Okay, so here's the solar low. We go all the way up. We'll take it to about right here. You can see that we come up to here. This was the stock market crash of 87. Pretty good correlation up to this point. We get this big dip right here, which kind of coincides with this area right in here. I won't make too much of that. We'll get into maybe some minutiae in other videos. That's going to require some serious data analysis, and it's a little bit foggy, so I don't want to get into that right now. But we can see that even though it tapered off here, the Dow Jones Transportation tried to muster up and follow the increase in the sunspots from here to here. Okay. And what do we see here, guys? I mean, you all know what I'm going to say next from this point on, right? What do you see? Divergence. The same doggone divergence. The same inverted geometrical shape. There it is again. It's just amazing. There it is. The same shape. Not quite 90 degrees, but close to it. Of course, as I said, these two charts over here are a little bit skewed. If I were to move this chart over a little bit and get these two lines to match up, I bet you we'd have a 90-degree angle right here instead of it being like 85 degrees. Okay? So you can just draw yourself, whenever you start detecting the divergence, heck, you just draw yourself a 90-degree angle and extend the lines, and you'll know where the peaks, a good peak's going to be. You know, you'll kind of know. I mean, we don't necessarily know the length of the line, but we certainly know where the solar minimum is going to be. And we could just say, hey, we got a divergence going on, so I know I got a divergence, I'll just draw myself a vertical line and project out into the future where the solar minimum is going to be, go vertical. And I can tell you right there, if the divergence is being detected early on, which that it can be detected, then you know you're going to continue to see a stock market go up. But we'll get into that in other videos. So what do you got right here? Well, this was the dot-com bubble burst. I was actually in software development this time. Okay, I remember I actually didn't have a job for like 6 months or almost a year. All the money dried up. I was doing software development, and boom, I did a lot of contract work during this time here. And then it dried up. I literally had to go work like a $5 an hour job, guys, for like a better part of a year or 6 months. I was working in South Florida. At that time, I had to take a $5 an hour job. I wasn't making enough money to even pay rent. And I was working at a hot dog place. I was making hot dogs. You put the relish on there and do all that good stuff, ketchup, onions, all that. That's what I was doing. And I was only getting like 15 to 20 hours a week. That's what happened. That's what this did to my finances at that time. Eventually, as we came out of this, I was able to get a job again. But for a while there, I couldn't pay rent. I literally had to make a bargain with my landlord. Yeah, I was what we call hustling. I was hustling. During this time right here, guys and gals, I actually had a brief moment where I was homeless. Ugh. Just thinking about it. Bring back some memories, And I can remember sleeping on a park bench during this time. Yeah. Thank God it wasn't long lasted, but interesting times. A little emotional. Sorry about that. Anyway, managed to get back on my feet, and life goes on. I'm grateful. So, absolutely amazing that you see this correction going on not too far removed from the cycle low, right? Okay, let's move on to the next cycle, which I think is going to be, this next cycle is going to be very interesting. The next, let's see, so I'll take it from about 1992, looks pretty good to me here. And we'll take it out to, let's see, 97, so 2000. And, let's take it all the way to present day. Okay. October 31st, present day. Okay, starting over here in 1995, you can see the solar minimum worked up. And the scale here is kind of hard, guys, because this time over here is just so crazy. So don't get fooled by this small appearance over here. It's not small, It's not small at all. It just looks that way. As a matter of fact, you know what? Because it's so... We'll come back to this. Let me go back to like 2000. Let me bring it into about 2005 so we can get this in scale, yeah? Whoops. Let's do 2005 and yeah. It's a little better, right? Okay. So here's the solar low. Not too far removed from there to there. They work up together. They work up together here. From about 1997 to 2000. 3 years, guys. We're going to do another video, as I already said, and talk about that 3 years. Yeah. Okay, from that point on, we're pretty much at a peak, and we come all the way down, and look at this. Absolutely bang on all the way to about here, 2003. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Wow. Then we get a little bit of a divergence going on there. Okay, let's move on to the next 2004-ish to today. 31 through 2021. So here we are. The moment everybody's been waiting for. What's going on today? Who cares about the past, right? The past is important too, guys. Here's the solar minimum, and look at that, guys. The crash of 2009, right on time, absolutely perfectly matches the solar minimum from the previous solar cycle. Look at that. One of the largest stock market crashes in the history of the stock market. If I remember right, 50% crash, 2007 to 2009, right perfectly with the solar minimum. Bang. No getting away from what's happening on the celestial scale, guys and gals. There's no getting away from it. We are born of the earth, our bodies anyway. We are forever tied to the earth, and there's no getting away from it. All right. So we move up from 2009 to about we'll take it to 2013. Anyway, that's a very interesting moment right there, yeah? Look at that. Baboomski. Nailed. Look at this drop here. We get this drop in this area right here. Right? And you can see it a little bit. We get this drop right there. Even in that same area, in that same kind of squarish rectangle area, they kind of line up there. Okay? But let's take it all the way to this peak over here. We get this a lot, guys. We get this first peak, a drop off, and a second peak. Okay? So let's look at the DJT. All the way to there. Stays with us all the way from 2009 to about 2014. Okay? And what do we get? You all know what I'm going to say next, right? From about right here, what do we get? Say it with me. Divergence. All the way to here. All the way to the solar minimum. Okay? Does everybody know what that is right there? Y'all know what that is, right? The pandemic. From February to March, whatever. The pandemic. Where is it at? You guessed it. Exactly at the solar minimum. Exactly. To within when we get into further videos, I'm going to show you how it's just, we look at the data, it's going to blow your mind. Right now, we're just doing this graphically so everybody can get the big picture. Again, just like we saw in the 1950s, and there was another cycle we saw the same, I think one or two other cycles saw the same thing. No matter how we try to get away from natural events, what happens? We get a correction. We get this correction. Boom, bam. Yeah. Now, where are we today? Which, by the way, if I remember right, the solar minimum, I think, was May of 2019. May of 2020. Like over here. It looks like it's here, doesn't it? But it's not. It's May of 2020. And the pandemic crash was March of 2020. We're talking within a month or two. On this kind of scale. Within 1 or 2 months accuracy. The pandemic, the whatever you want to call it. Okay? It impacted the entire world. Yeah. Solar minimum. Why? Because the way the earth responds. The way crops grow. The way the human mind works. The way our physiology works. You name it. The sun impacts everything on the face of the earth. Everything. We're not in control of ourselves as much as we think we are. Everybody's starting to get that picture? Oh, sure, we have freedom of choice. Say something, don't say something. Tell the truth, tell a lie. But our state of mind, our physiology is severely influenced by solar energy. The electromagnetic energy coming into the earth. It influences us, and it influences all of humanity. for the last year or two. And look at this. It's a solar energy tapered off. And by the way, this is one of the weaker solar cycles that we've had in a long time. Very weak. Okay. Let me go back to 1994. Look. Did I tell you weak? Look at the difference. Look at the difference in energy, the lack of energy from the previous solar cycle to this one. Look at that. It's huge. We had, 75, whatever, 100 sunspots, and here we're down in half that. Half. 3,500. Maybe whatever. Maybe it's a little higher. Maybe it's like 4,000. Almost half. So the entire solar cycle had low energy relative to this one. And so when we got the absolute minimum where there were no sunspots, like, sometimes when we get into the data, you'll see there's no sunspots for the entire month. 0 at solar minimums. And the longer we go in in weak solar cycles, the longer that time period down into the solar minimum, the greater the chance bad things are going to happen. Crime rates go up. It's a statistical fact. Crime rates go up. Riots go up. Sound familiar? People's health begins to become compromised on a greater scale than back here or back here. Wow, just doing this video is emotional. It's hard because I know a lot about the data, not just financial data, but other data. It's emotional. It's hard not to get emotional. It's the influence, and the more I think about this, is on such a grand scale. It, as I said earlier in the video, it makes me feel small. It literally shakes me sometimes. Okay, I know the video is long. I hope you really enjoyed it. We're going to talk about the numbers. We're going to talk about okay, that's great. We looked at the history. Okay, what does it mean moving forward? The next video I put out, hopefully, I'm just going to remember to do it. We're going to talk about these first 3 years, which, by the way, we're just about there. All right, everybody, hope you really enjoyed the video. This is mind-boggling stuff, jaw-dropping stuff. There's a lot more coming in other videos. I'm going to put out other videos about it. I hope you really enjoyed the video. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, guys and gals. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to click that little bell to be notified of all the videos I put them out. We'll talk to you all real soon again next time.